Welcome back to Raid Check. Let's talk a little Game Pass, man. The price went up. The price of the brick has gone up. A lot of people are arguing whether they feel like it's worth it or not. Depending on what kind of gamer you are, what you're into, how many games that you play over a certain amount of time. And again, you're always fighting against time more than anything else, right? As somebody who considers gaming as much of a hobby or a passion as anything else that you could possibly think of, if you watch TV, watch movies, no matter what, there's lessons to learn in each individual piece of entertainment that you end up taking in, but you find those same values in gaming as well, and it's much more interactive. You're hands-on. You're constantly working on the hand-eye coordination and constantly evolving yourself. Now, can you get lost in the sauce in that too? Sure, but again, I don't think it's any different than any other hobby or passion, unless you're trying to literally evolve in that hobby to potentially make money, which you could do in gaming as well, although it's a much more saturated market than many other things, right? So, but nonetheless, Game Pass. Xbox is definitely interesting coming around this time, right? Regardless of how you feel about it. PlayStation is again, as far as the competition between Xbox and PlayStation, because again, is the only competition that's there. Nintendo's not in that same conversation. They haven't been in that same conversation since, I would say, GameCube, honestly. And so when we're just looking at PlayStation and Xbox, PlayStation has become the Apple of the gaming industry as far as people just, hey, it's the cool product to get. I want PlayStation. And again, nothing against PlayStation. I don't think they hold a candle to Xbox as far as games go. But again, I am the guy who will always stand behind the Halo, Gears, and Forza. Definitely some of my favorite games. Again, I give PlayStation plenty of credit and credence for all the titles that they've brought over the years. And I think the last game that really stood out to me for them was Last of Us. Now, I haven't played 2. I won't play 2 because, they took out factions from 1 and they don't even include it in the remix that they've done, right? And obviously, PlayStation doesn't even see the value in their own IP. So, for Xbox, Microsoft to make all the changes that they have, again, going from 4 to 5 studios to now having over 30 after they got ABK and Bethesda and everything else. And I get that people don't feel like that's a value to them, right? Or that maybe that was the wrong move. But they are we're moving into a digital era where, again, I've mentioned this plenty of times, just conversation and passing by or podcasts and anything else like that. We're moving into extremely uncharted territory, right? Over the last decade, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft are the games that the generation behind me and the generation behind them have fallen in love with, right? Or those are the ones that they're looking for, right? They're also looking to get access however they can get access, right? It doesn't have to be locked down to a particular box, which I also think is super dope, right? Because, again, that's how things used to be. You have to get this box to play these games, to do whatever. And it used to be kind of frustrating when you used to click up with somebody or y'all get in the conversation and be like, yo, what you got? Oh, I'm playing this such and such game. Y'all are playing the same game, especially if it's a multiplayer. And again, I am more multiplayer focused, more multiplayer centric. So I think that has a lot that plays into why I have the love for Xbox that I do. But nonetheless, it gets frustrating. It got frustrating, and it still is frustrating today because not all games still do crossplay, cross-save, and all that stuff. But at least crossplay, when y'all are playing the same game and people like, oh, well, I got this system, and I got that system, but, well, we can't play together because we got that system difference. I just think that that's dumb. I don't think any multiplayer game moving forward needs to have that. Single player games, I can more so understand. But even those, like, you're limiting the base that you can sell to or the people that have the possible interest. And because you already have a generation of kids or teens or young adults that are like, they have other games, like what we thought was cool back in the day, like, is not the same as what they think is cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that you have to put into consideration. Games are getting more expensive. Not enough people are playing the high top tier games that people would consider, right? They're not selling as well as they should. But if you're going to stay with the exclusive route, single player games or whatever, you do the year delay, right, between the individual platforms. Because again, I do see and understand the ecosystem kind of differences that you want to introduce to people. But the main thing, I think exclusives in many factors should go to the wayside. Give me console exclusive hardware. What I mean by that is that let's get back to holding these companies accountable for innovating on the hardware. Like truly creating differences that say, oh, well, this game can only be played here because of ABC reasons. We don't get that. That hasn't been really a case for some time. You know what I mean? Since the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, that hasn't really been the case. Outside of, I'll give Blu-ray some of that benefit, right? But even Blu-ray didn't see enough of a benefit. There was just like, oh man, this really can't be done on this other box because of this reason. And that's the biggest reason why I don't think exclusives matter or should matter or do matter as much as they used to. Unless we get back to a route to where these pieces of hardware that we get, and even on PC, which is why I don't see this happening. If creating games is getting more expensive than ever, then there's only one route that I see that's possible. Creating an environment to where one game can be made and it can be scaled up or down. Because that's something that already happens on PC. If the consoles are already becoming more PC-like, then why not go that direction? It's more cost-effective for everybody that's involved. And if you really want to innovate, you do something different with the hardware. But guess what? You're going to have more cost associated with that. So it's like we have reached somewhat of a peak as far as graphics and what we can expect. I mean, the controllers, what's the next step? VR is knocked on the door, couldn't open it. AR, I can see that happening, right? But it's still not quite there. So, Game Pass, the value that it continues to bring, even at $30, right? I think it's definitely more of a conversation now. Because at 15, it was undeniable. At 20, it was like, but 30, I do agree with people. It does make people question whether this is something that is for them or not. If you're somebody who only, again, talk to the gamers out there. If you're somebody who only purchases a game every now and then, you get locked into that game, it's not for you. But if you're somebody like myself who, because of Game Pass, it has allowed me to play other games outside of what I would normally play or be willing to spend the ducats on. There's a lot of games at Game Pass I just, maybe I would have spent a lot of the time that I would have spent money on that I didn't have to, right? Because it's part of my subscription. Now you can say, oh, well, this is the rental service and this and another thing. You still have the access to buy those games if you wanted to. Just because you play a game and pay Game Pass doesn't mean that you can't buy games still, which is the other absurd thing to me. Or when you get this information about Call of Duty and, oh, well, the sales are down on Xbox because Call of Duty's in Game Pass. Again, it speaks to this contradictory thing. Is Game Pass successful or is it not? Because people will lead you to believe that it's not. But then also argue, well, Game Pass is killing the industry because it's changing the way the consumers take in their content and people aren't buying games. But it's like, but y'all also argue the other side that Game Pass isn't working. So if Game Pass is causing people to not buy games and play them through Game Pass, that means people are subscribing to play those games, which is something that Microsoft wants. It's kind of contradictory in some ways to me, but look, nonetheless, haven't done a rain check like this in a while. I wanted to come on here and just chop it up with y'all, man. The industry continues to be interesting, right? Ever since I slowed down podcasting and got real life stuff going on and just trying to focus on that, trying to elevate and level up myself, as we like to say, it has centered down. And I do got to consider some things, but nonetheless, much love. Y'all be easy. Catch you in the next one.